Hello and welcome to the fourth edition of the Deccan Herald's webinar series, GS Sparks. My name is Madhu Javali and I'm the sports editor of the Deccan Herald. Today, we have a very distinguished panel which will discuss a very relevant topic, sports in the time of COVID-19. I will hand over the next proceedings to Charu Sharma. He will introduce the guests and set the ball rolling. Over to you, Charu.
I think, Charu, you got to unmute yourself first.
Somebody need to do that for me, yeah?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Well, there we are. What will life be without snags? Okay, so, well, I'll have to go through all that again? Please, no. But I just want to thank Madhu, of course. And I want to thank Deccan Herald, everybody who made this possible. We often tend not to remember that we're in a particular situation because of the support given by various people. So a big thank you to them and to Ruma, who's managing this, and all the colleagues here at Deccan Herald. And a big thank you to everybody who's tuned in on different media, some of which I'm not very familiar with, but thank you all, because you know, as I know, this is a very special day. We've got 4 of the most fabulous sports persons produced in India, by India. And well, since names are required, Rahul, thank you so much for joining us. Gopichand, thank you so much. Sunil Chhetri, Captain Still, and of course, Pankaj Advani, the miracle, is also here with us. I wanted to start with age before. I can't take the other word, can I? But people will, may climb on top of me saying, oh gosh, why must cricket always come first? So Rahul, I beg your pardon. We'll go to the youngest instead. And Pankaj, if that's you, I'm not so sure. Sunil's pretty young himself. But we have somebody who's won a world record number of global trophies in billiards and snooker. Pankaj, we're delighted to have you. In many ways, of course, Q sports are best off because there's so much physical distancing anywhere. How have you personally taken these very strange COVID times? And could it be said that billiards and snooker may not really suffer because training is eminently possible?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say it's a huge honor to be among such an elite group of panelists. Thank you, Charu, for that lovely introduction. Yeah, I do understand that, we are facing a lot of challenges and these are unprecedented times. At the same time, to participate in a sporting competition, one needs to travel. And the fact is that there are too many risks involved at the moment. But per se, if you talk about snooker as a sport that's non-contact and, where there is distance, all I can say is that, the referees also wear gloves. It's only that when you put your hand on the table and the opponent also places their hands on the table, maybe we could start using gloves and playing the sport. That's one way of looking at it. But for now, I think it's too risky. Personally, that's my opinion. And I feel that, once we do find a vaccine or perhaps even a cure now, maybe in the next 4 or 5 months towards the end of the year, we are looking at having international competitions.
Well, I mean, safety before anything else. I get your message. Although, of course, we'll come back to the fact that many other sports have decided that they must move ahead. And let's then move to Rahul. Thanks so much for joining us, Jen. Now, 4 to almost 5 months, no cricket. There was a time when cricket was like once in 3-4 months and people really look forward to it. Now it's a 365 business. Yet so much time, no cricket. In your opinion, because you must be in touch with several colleagues of yours, has this in any way set Indian cricket or cricketers back?
Firstly, Charu, just echoing Pankaj's sentiments, just really happy to be here. Thanks for the introduction, and it's lovely to be amongst such an elite group of sportsmen and sports people, and always love seeing these guys, and obviously have loved following their careers and seeing what they've achieved. Obviously, two of them continue to play the sport, and Gopi is a master coach, so we follow his progress on that as well. So lovely to be here. In terms of cricket, so I think we were a little bit lucky with Indian cricket in the sense of the COVID pandemic. The lockdown sort of started happening at the end of March. So the only tournament that really didn't get held in the domestic calendar was the Irani Trophy and a few women's tournaments that were scheduled for April, and of course the IPL, which was a sort of the big part of the Indian calendar at the end of the year. The IPL, as we know, is in the process of sort of happening now in September, and in sort of September, October through to a little bit of November. So the next season, the next domestic season for a lot of our young domestic players, the junior players, the under 16s, the under 19, a lot of our women cricketers sort of starts in middle September, middle sort of October. So I think it's from then on, if we are not able to get back to some level of normalcy, and I think it's probably going to take a little bit longer than that, it's then when I think, we're going to start seeing the real impact of this on our sort of domestic cricket and the grassroots cricket. A few international tournaments have been cancelled, have been repositioned, and I think they can always be, sort of, people can find place and time for that. We can always do that. But yeah, so I think once October comes around, I think, that's when the real, I think it'll start hitting us a little bit more. Hopefully, I think that, even if we are able to start a little bit later in the year, and hopefully, like Pankaj said, if we're able to find some level of a cure or a vaccine, even towards the end of the year, I think we still might be in a position to be able to complete, if not the whole domestic season, but large parts of it. And obviously prioritizing what is important, and ensuring that a lot of our young boys and girls don't miss out on, competitive cricket for a year. So we've been lucky so far, but come October, I think things might start getting a bit stressful.
Yeah, many points about cricket. You mentioned that, our season ends February, March in India, but the cricket team plays around the world now, because somewhere or the other in the world, the weather's worthwhile, maybe down south in the lower part of the earth, southern hemisphere. But I'll get back to many other cricketing points. Of course, it doesn't seem like cricket, or even you personally, are really waiting for the vaccine, unlike Pankaj saying, let that happen, then we'll play, because the cricket world's pretty happy to get along. Gopi, badminton tournaments being cancelled left, right, center, everywhere, all the time. Big swings are cancelled. What has that done to the main players of India? Because you once again must be in touch with all of them. What are their thoughts mentally, particularly? Because on one hand, of course, people are desperate for more and more rest. But as we know, because of the Olympics and many other situations, they want to also play most of the bigger tournaments. Can't play anything right now. What shape are they in?
I think, first of all, very good evening to all of you. Just echo what Pankaj and Rahul have said. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Having said that, I think sport, world sport and tournaments getting cancelled, I think the first 2-3 months were okay with players because they were kind of scared of things. But I think it's just getting a bit too far. So I think it's getting a little not so nice moments at the time, because they're getting a little edgy at the moment. So I would really love to see things start. But in the present scenario, people are also scared. Players are also scared that things may not be the same. So till the time a vaccine or a cure comes up, the players are very apprehensive to start. So I think for the moment, for the top players, I think it's not going to be so easy. Maybe another 2-3 months is what then they are forced to wait. The only thing I would think is, for many of us, we haven't started practice as much in full-fledged, and that's something of a bit of a worry, because if the whole world is practicing and if we are not, then when things start off, we might actually be lagging behind.
I must quickly ask, Gopi, if the rest of the world is practicing, if you believe...
Charu, we've lost you.
Yeah, if you can hear me now again, Gopi.
Yeah.
Raise your thumb if you can. That's one easy way. All right, there we go. Just wondering, because badminton lends itself to physical distancing. Maybe not double so much, but certainly singles. So why are we in our part of the world not opening up badminton facilities, say like yours, high performance facilities where there can be a fair amount of sanitation and control? Because I believe that it's still, as you said, nobody's practicing.
Well, I think it's a government policy at the moment, so it's a bit generalized at the moment, but I would love to see them open up at least training grounds for professional athletes. And we are not recreational, and I would love to see them start for professional athletes to start training.
Yeah, well, there's a certain limit to how safe one can be, and when will this pandemic ever leave us? I mean, God knows at this point of time. Sunil, thanks again for joining us, and I'll give you 5 seconds at the top to say hello to everybody else, like everybody else has said. But, the overseas leagues, the biggest, richest leagues in the world, were in an awful hurry. Now, it's not that those countries were free from trouble, but they were happy to get back to it without spectators. In India, how far away are we, and can we not create the same kind of sanitized environment for football?
Well, I think, first of all, good evening, and it is an honor to be here. I would buy a ticket and be a fan and just watch all the gentlemen talk. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say they were happy and in a hurry. I'm pretty sure that they worked out all the permutation and combination and went ahead with the league. By far, it was successful because we didn't hear anything major going wrong. The Bundesliga, the La Liga, or the fans. And it was a little bit strange and weird not to see the fans, but that's the way it is to keep everyone safe. Can we not replicate it in India? I think that's what we want to do. But also taking a decision for a sporting event comes from the government. So whenever it has to come from the government first, that this is what we're going to go forward, and then probably whenever the ISL or any other sporting event that happens in our country will follow. But until and unless from the parent body it comes that we ahead with it, because it involves so many foreigners in our league. It's not only just the domestic players. It's not easy. They are talking about creating a bubble where all the players are going to come together. As a player, when you hear it, you think what is going to be, how it's going to be, why not? But it is the need of the hour, because safety is the prime concern. But yes, these three big leagues have shown if things are taken care properly, you can go forward. It is not going to be the same. It's never the same without the fans. But there is joy when you watch live football on TV. So even if you can't go and watch a match as a fan in a stadium, the close second is TV. I mean, you want to watch live football, man. There's nothing else beautiful in this world to watch live football. So yeah.
Well, I got a few smiles from at least one participant. But yeah, this whole business of playing without spectators, I know I'm jumping a bit here, but Rahul, how the England-West Indies series, how did that leave you without any kind of, major spectator role? Of course, a lot of cricket in India at the domestic level, there are no spectators anyway. But let me put it differently. The percentage of joy, if you can give it a quantity, of having a full stadium or lots of people watching and enjoying it, and therefore the home advantage that is created, what kind of percentage is that? Is it like a hefty 10% or more, or maybe 2 or 3%, or what, Rahul?
I think it's a big part of why you play sport. I mean, it's hard to put a number to it, but it's a huge part of why, someone plays sport, because in the end of the day, sportsmen are, entertainers, they are performers, and you want to be performing for people. I think there's a certain joy that you get from, exhibiting your skills or your abilities in front of people. The vibe and the atmosphere, and Sunil is right. I mean, the kind of vibe and atmosphere that fans create is something that, is unmatched. Of course, you'll be professional about it. And even I think as we saw in the England versus the West Indies series, we still saw some very, very good performances, and players were very professional about it, and they go about their jobs, and they will put in top class performances because that is just what they do. But I think the level of satisfaction that comes from, playing in front of fans, playing in front of people, I think, it's something that's very, very different. And, it's hard to quantify it, but it's like having an extra person on the field, especially if you're a home team. And that's the kind of impact. And that is why we see a lot of home teams win a lot of games, because of, the kind of impact that, say, supporters and fans can have on the game. So, yeah, I think as sportsmen, we love to play in front of crowds and people, but in times like this, I think it was nice. It was, in fact, to be honest, it was really nice to see England and West Indies and to watch live cricket again was, after so many months, was fantastic. And I think they did a great job of ensuring, the environment that they created. And obviously we're hearing from players later on, it was not easy. I mean, I heard Jason Holder speak about how tough it was to be in that environment for the 2.5 months that they were there, or 2+ months that they were there. And that's not easy for the sportsmen. But I think it was very, very important that something got going. And it was great to see that it got going without a hitch. So that's why I said earlier, I think international cricket, I think they'll be able to create this kind of bio bubbles. But like I said, my worry is more domestic and junior cricket and things like that. It might not be that easy.
Yeah, for you, everything, all roads lead back to under 19 and lower still. But the biggest danger, before this show, of course, if you didn't hear me at the top, let me say once again that I'm so pleased and delighted that all of you have made the time as well. It's a very special day. My biggest worry was, we got 4 stalwarts, all of whom are very articulate, and we've got less than an hour. That's ridiculous. We need at least 4 or 5 hours. So time is going to be very short today. Yet, we have to go through a couple of other things. For instance, we've got a few polls going for all those who've, can I use the word tuned in, even though this is not quite television. We got a first poll question, and for our Facebook and YouTube audiences, I'm going to actually read that question. Most of you can otherwise see it. Are you enjoying the sporting action without spectators in stadiums? Now, of course, for the moment, there aren't too many sporting action going on or events going on, but then without spectators, are you happy? Yes or no? So let's have your results as quickly as possible. Hosts and panelists cannot vote, so no hand raises here. Okay. Pankaj, much as there's a polite smattering of applause when you play a really good shot or whatever, but for your sport particularly, silence is the key. If somebody sneezes in one corner, you're like, oh my God, I missed my pot. So for you, does it really matter? Or you're saying, why can't we carry on? We don't really, we love spectators, but we don't have to feed off them so much, maybe.
Personally, I definitely agree with Rahul, sir, that, we love performing in front of spectators and fans. And I kind of disagree with the fact that if there are, that we don't really need spectators, because spectators egg us on and we actually feed off from the energy. Of course, unlike in cricket and football, where there are a lot more spectators in the arenas and stadiums, at the same time, because of the challenges that we're facing and the situation that we find ourselves in, it is imperative to sort of work out a different method and sort of improvise. Improvise and say, okay, fine, if we can have closed door events, which is the need of the hour, then why not? But it brings me back to the same point of traveling. And if you're going to have international competitions, you still are at a huge risk because of the travel that's involved. And it's not only just yourself, you're also putting others at risk, your loved ones, your competitors, the officials, everybody. So to have any kind of gathering per se is going to be a little tricky as of now.
Yeah, well, I have noticed that in Q sports events, spectators tend to be very neutral. They appreciate a good shot regardless of who plays it. But Gopi, you travel around the world and you see, say, places like Indonesia, where I was lucky enough to go to Bali and watch a major tournament, actually commentate on it. There's so much partisan support that if you are from Indonesia, great, every smash there's a whoa. And every time, the other person plays, there's a boo or a hiss or whatever. That can be pretty unnerving for to have that level of spectator kind of bias, should we say.
I think for badminton, I think there are events like in Indonesia, the crowd is maddening. And I love the atmosphere because it's very unlike in England or Europe, where they clap at a certain time with certain style and then stop at a certain time. And here there's singing and dancing going all through, no matter what. So, and when you can't even hear yourself shout. So it's kind of very loud. Having said that, I think we all would love to see sport with spectators. We all love the energy which the spectators give us. But I think given an option, I think that's what we want. But if there's no option, and if sport has to go without spectators, I think players will adapt, because today there's a larger audience outside in terms of television, which would still love to see sport. And for that reason, I think sport can continue without spectators for the moment because these are difficult times.
Well, Gopi, like many other sports, badminton is a very, very brutal physical sport. And people may not feel it or see it, but people at the highest level, oh, I know it's very rough. So yes, you don't want to be inactive for a year or two, but the past 3 or 4 months, have they been of terrific value to even the top players, to many players, to get rid of their niggles and be, in fact, a lot fitter than they were 3 or 4 months ago when they were in the full swing of the competition?
I think yes. I think for many of them who spent a lot of time traveling, I think for them, for the support team, whether it's coaches or team physios, I think the rest is good, and the times of no travel gives you time with families and stuff. But as Rahul has said, I'm concerned more about the junior lot. I think if there's a guy who's 19 years old, then I think he is raring to go. And a year gone now hurts him far more. If there's a guy who's 15 or 16 and this is the last year of his sub-junior event, and if he misses a year now, that's a big loss. So at 13, 14, where you're practicing, a year loss is very difficult. So for different people, it's different. For top players, for some of them who've had niggles, who've been having and needing some rest mentally and physically, it helps. But for somebody who's younger and who's on the rise, I think at 19, 20, you're looking at a talent. At 22, you're saying maybe he has lost a couple of good years and probably is just not the same talent anymore. So I think it works differently. And my concern is about the younger lot.
Yeah, well, there's always a trade-off because younger players, those who are not in the top 10, 20, are raring to go. They want an event every week. And the ones at the top are saying, no more, please. We want, a month off every once in a while. But Sunil, football, strangely, out of the 4 of you here, is the highest contact sport. I mean, Pankaj doesn't need to, tackle anyone and go in badminton, just a polite little shake hand over the net. In cricket too, they've learned how to probably just elbow bump or whatever else. But football, you cannot avoid major contact. And yet in many ways, okay, it was in different countries, it was the first sport to, revive, as it were, post-COVID. Not yet so in India. But is there not a much higher element of danger because of that?
I think there is. But I'm pretty sure because everything was covered, then only it started. At the end of the day, if someone has it, then only it's going to spread. If there are 20, of course, the probability is more when there are more people. But if you can control it, and if no one has it, then you can play around. You could clearly see it because the first one was, I think, the Korean League that announced. And I was quite skeptical because I think it was 1.5, 2 months back. And I was thinking, wow, this is risky. Because at that time, even going out or even thinking of going out was so difficult. But then the Korean League happened and then the Bundesliga started. And as a fan, I enjoyed it. And that's the day I realized that even though the fans are not going to come, it is joy because you're watching on telly a live match. So yes, there is more risk in my sport because there's more contact. I can't say to the defender that, there is COVID going on. Don't elbow me or don't pull my t-shirt or don't come to my face. So yes, there is risk, but it's only going to start once everything is taken care of. And you know what, Charu? The match is just the Sunday. But from Monday to Saturday, when the boys are training, we are 25 to 30 boys training. There are about 10 coaches. There is ball boy, there is water boy, there is the groundsman. Everyone is going to come together. All of them are going to go to their respective houses. They're going to meet, I don't know who and all. So the checking has to be every day. And I'm pretty sure the Premier League, the La Liga, they were having it every day. Every day, the boys or whoever were involved in the training must be monitored. Otherwise, Sunday, the match won't happen. You can't take a risk of just bringing 2 teams playing on a Sunday when both the teams and everyone in the team haven't been checked. So I think it involves a high degree of making sure that everyone is safe. Then only a match on Sunday will happen. And if I have 10 seconds, both the legends here said that a 17 or a 15-year-old is going to miss out. I think I'm in the same boat because my validity is much more lesser than them. They're going to have 17, 20, 22 years more to play. I've got limited, so I'm equally fidgety right now.
Well, Sunil, you better start looking your age then. Otherwise, you're fooling us all. Yeah, but so much more. We can't get into the medical end of it, because I mean, who really knows what's going on? You talk about testing, and we keep hearing reports about the fact that, but who test whom, how? Is it just temperature or what, or oximeter? So it's all, it's a bit of a muddle. And I have to get back to the big elephant in the room, which is the IPL. We'll get back to that in a second. But let's get the poll results. So did you people enjoy watching sporting events with spectators or not? What's the result here? No, 61%. I'm afraid, well, it's not like 90-10. So I think a lot of people did enjoy sport, even without spectators, but that's probably because it's all a little new now. And we'd love to get sport on television, even if there are no spectators. If you take the same poll, say 2-3 months from now, and there's still no spectators, I'm sure that might be more like 80-20 or 90-10. But thank you so much for participating in our poll. We'll come back to another poll pretty quickly. And so to the elephant in the room. Now, the Indian team, the senior cricketer, nobody has been playing much cricket at all. And yet, the IPL has been announced. It's going to happen from mid-September or so in the Gulf. So many points to talk about. But let's take your view, Rahul. Now, even the Tokyo Olympics have been postponed, biggest sporting event of the world. Many, many major sporting events have been postponed. No spectators. Let's just take it to next year or maybe a later date. Why do you think is this desperation, if I can use that term, to ensure that the IPL must not be postponed? We must have the season in 2020. Why not just be very safe and take it to 2021? Or whatever your thoughts are.
Well, I think we've been, I think they've been cautious. So it has been postponed for something that was supposed to be held in April and May. Is being now held in September and October in what I'd like to believe is pretty safe and conditions that are suitable to be able to play sport without spectators. So I think cricket's waited for things like Sunil said, the Bundesliga or the EPL. There's sports like that have that have started and that have been able to complete their leagues and complete their tournaments. Yes, the Tokyo Olympics was probably much earlier in the start of this pandemic than the IPL, which is going to be probably in September and October. And probably, we weren't ready for it in that sense. And I think the Olympics involves a lot more complications than, say, an IPL might. I'm sure that, leagues like the IPL, which is, one of the premier leagues in the world, will be in a position to be able to put in the kind of biosecure environment that is required by, say, what the Bundesliga has done or the EPL has done, or England and West Indies, for that matter, have been able to do. And that's very important that they're able to do that. And I'm sure that, every effort will be made to be able to do that. Why they should start? I think, the IPL I think in the end of the day, we also got to realize that in the end of the day, let's be honest and frank about it. I think there's a huge amount of revenue that rides with tournaments like the IPL. And I know that if you're cynical about it, you can think you can only look at the money that, say, the big players make, or maybe the franchisees might make in a situation like this, or you might say the BCCI makes a lot of money from it. But where does that money go? Eventually that money that the BCCI makes, it goes down to the state associations. It goes down to conducting under-19 tournaments. It goes down to conducting under-16 tournaments. So a lot of the revenue that is associated with the game, it is, the fact of the matter is none of the grassroots sport or none of the domestic sport in the world actually generates any revenue. In fact, it costs you a huge amount of money to hold. So if you want to give young boys and girls an opportunity to play, if you want to give them opportunities to express their talent, the money has got to come from somewhere. I know we don't like talking about finance, but the reality is to conduct tournaments, to develop high-class athletes, and Gopi will agree with me, and Sunil and Pankaj have been in those kind of environments. It costs money. There's a financial element involved in it. So when you have tournaments like this, I know it's easy to say, it's just because it's a huge financial tournament, that's why people want to start it, and there's your words were hurry to start the tournament. I would like to think that, it's important to try and play as many without. Obviously, like I said, I'm not compromising on anyone's safety and ensuring that we get all the SOPs in place, we get everything in place to be able to conduct a safe and secure tournament. If we can do that, I think we got to realize that the money generated from the IPL is actually something that filters all through our sport and helps, to be honest, fund domestic cricket and to fund junior cricket. So that is why I think sporting organizations are keen to play these high-profile tournaments, because they understand that, if you don't have that revenue, not only is that tournament going to suffer, but the ripple effect of that is going to be felt all the way down.
Well, without question, you make a very good point. And let me quickly clarify. This is about the four of you, not about me, but I'm going to push on a little personal view here. There's no bigger supporter of sport than I am. Any sport, anywhere, anytime. So I'm personally very happy. It's just that sadly what tends to happen is, to my mind, sports is in our part of the world a very soft target. So should something, God forbid, goes wrong in a major sporting event, the kind of criticism and the kind of, filth that will be thrown around scares me because, oh, why did you have to have it because of, but like I said, God forbid, nothing. Now, which reminds me, let's quickly take our second poll today. And what else could it have been except that should the IPL be held in this era of the pandemic? So particularly for our Facebook and YouTube listeners, I'm repeating that question in an audio fashion. Is it right to hold the IPL amid this pandemic? So yes or no, let's have your opinion. I think Rahul has already shared his opinion, so maybe that's biased people a bit, but of course, I'm sure all of you have your very individual opinion. Gopi, if we can shift once again back to the top players. I mean, in badminton particularly, the hopes and expectations of Indian fans have hit, well, the highest possible point. Saina, then later Sindhu, now, maybe even Kidambi. So the expectations of a lot of Indian badminton fans are like every time they go into court, they have to win a medal or win the tournament or get to the final. And of course, they've done very well. But you, particularly because of the academies, and I think that's a fabulous way to go, high performance academies, do you feel that we'll be able to kind of keep that supply chain going, or is it cyclical? We'll get 2 or 3 fabulous players and then maybe there'll be a big dip and somebody new will come along?
I think it's a deeper question, Charu, because for me, the last 15 years since I've started coaching, I think have been great. We've moved from place to place in events where we never done before, whether it's singles, doubles, women's doubles, men's doubles, now men's singles. I think overall it's been very, very good. And back then it was almost like only one place and a few players playing. The numbers were very less. But today, even in each city, there are almost a few hundred academies which have started. In junior, sub-junior tournaments, we almost have about 3,000, 4,000 kids participating, and national level events. Even at state level, there's a huge number. So now it's even more important that we as a country develop a system and put all our resources together to ensure that we actually find the right talent and ensure that they go all the way forward. I think there are good new schemes by the government which have come. We also have private academies, we have corporate.
Yeah, Gopi, your audio. Yeah, there you are. You're back again. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
We have NGOs who are supporting the sport, so things are far better off. But I think to channelize all of them together and put a system in place is of key importance, because now it's not like a handful of players. We've got many more talents, and we have an opportunity to really keep producing players one after the other.
Well, I certainly hope so. But, the weight of expectations can be really tough to handle. I mean, if Rahul goes out every time, he pads up and says, well, maybe I can get a big score for myself, but I better get it from my fans, otherwise they'll be on me. Or even Sunil, if I don't score today, gosh, what's going to happen? Or Pankaj, I've been involved with your sport for very long, as you know, many decades. And a part of me always wants to know, and perhaps you can answer that today if there is an answer, with so much international success at the highest level from Indian players regularly, and you, of course, the latest biggest star, to my mind, the sport hasn't crossed into the next level, into the next financial level or popularity level, or what is holding that back? And now, of course, you also have a minor administrative role, so maybe you see it from different angles. What needs to be done? What can be done in terms of priority to make sure that Q sports are on the pedestal they deserve to be, at least in our country?
Personally, I think this is a great time to think about televising the sport in India. And that's where I feel, the authorities need to look at very seriously. Because, as everybody has said on this discussion, that we have to now adapt to the new normal and play without spectators, at least for now. until we reach safer times and we find a vaccine or a cure. So for a sport like snooker, it is definitely possible to televise it, have closed door events, and actually make it very visually appealing. Because the table is colorful. You have 22 balls on the table when you play snooker. You have sometimes you even have glamorous referees. Nice dress codes for players. It's not a sport where you just wear track pants or shorts. You can actually dress up well and play the sport. So there are a lot of elements that can be introduced into our sport and make it more television friendly. And I think that's the way forward to sort of make cue sports more visible and also educate the public and increase awareness.
So where is that getting stuck?
Well, you'll have to ask the Federation that question.
These are tough ones to answer, frankly, really. I understand that. Sunil, a lot of the urban folk who, hang on, just before that, we did have a poll going on with the IPL, should it be held under these pandemic situations or not? So let's have our result. Oh, yeah, well, Rahul, most people with you. Yeah. Again, we should have had the poll before your answer. I think you're a big influencer in that field. But, that's pretty close. And I think people are starved of action, cricket being such a big sport in our part of the world anyway. I understand why 59% of the people would say, well, bring it on anyway. And I just hope and pray that, God forbid, there's no incident, even though it's, of course, not in India. It's in the UAE, presents a different kind of challenge. But just to remind you, Rahul, in case you haven't heard this, I was doing a BBC show yesterday. And the amount that the ECB has spent on just the two venues doing these 3 test matches, £20 million. To make sure that the bio bubbles were created and were followed. Of course, people follow that very closely there. So it's not cheap. And through the whole IPL, 50 days or whatever, these bio bubbles are going to be a very large, bubble in somebody's bank account. But I hope nothing goes wrong, touch wood. It's a pretty ideal venue. So Neil, it also concerns me that so many urban football followers are very happy to follow overseas leagues. And of course, there's some fabulous football there. Do you at times feel, hey, support our own Indian football and or Indian league football first or as well? And is that frustrating that, attention seems to just forever be, in a sense, diluted, diverted to others? Or do you feel that for the following for football in India or Indian football is kind of at least a half full glass?
I think I've spoken about this a lot of times. I do not completely blame the spectators. I think it has to go hand in hand where you're already watching football. I think it is the most watched. If you take all the young boys and girls in our country, they know everything about all the top clubs. 1:30 a.m. at night, the matches happen and everyone is awake and watching it. So the zeal and the want and the desire of watching football is there. But a lot of them ask, why would I watch, let's suppose, a second division game happening in Jammu and Kashmir with not the same quality at all as a Dortmund and a Schalke game, And I understand that because there is a fan in me also. How many times would you ignore a top quality game and watch a second division or a I-League second division or an I-League game or an ISL game? I would not say ISL and I-League because now a lot of people watch ISL and I-League. As compared to the last 5, 6, 7 years, a lot of people watch it, at the stadium and on telly. Not the same amount of guys and girls who are watching foreign football, but yes, it has definitely improved. But it comes down to quality. I mean, we got to ask ourselves, if we have a choice of watching the best in the world, why would we at that time spend our energy and time watching something which is not that great? So I understand the psyche of a fan. But I think it has to go hand in hand. The genuine football lovers in the country who love Indian football, they have migrated and they spend much more time on domestic football. The ones who haven't and the ones who want just pure quality, if I'm going to spend my 2-3 hours watching something, I'd rather watch a Messi or a Ronaldo. Why would I going to watch a domestic football when it's not that great? It is not going to be that great overnight. We have improved, but the improvement is this much. Slowly and steadily will improve. For example, now the whole country watches Virat Kohli. But if Virat Kohli and the team is, let's suppose, 90th in the world, and there are some Japanese and Chinese and some country who are top class, they're probably going to watch them. And you can't blame them, as fans. You're not going to watch every time something because you are patriotic or because you want quality when you watch. You all want to watch the best. So I think in that context, it has to be hand in hand, where the domestic football scene improves, which it is improving, but there's a mile to go. You can't expect. I mean, it's difficult for everyone to leave all the Messi and Ronaldos and just watch domestic football.
Yeah, no, I feel what you're saying.
No, I need to butt in here.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Madhu, I just want
There
to
are quite a few questions for our panelists. Let me read out a couple of them. Vijay Krishnamurthy is asking on Zoom. In 2021, will the sporting events be capped due to pressure from sponsors? If yes, could it cause bigger problems for athletes with regard to travel and injury? You can ask any one of the panelists to answer this. It's a generic
thank
question.
you, Madhu. Did you say that in 2021 should sporting
Yes, in
events be
2021,
cramped
yeah.
or held?
Yeah, they will be cramped due to pressure from sponsors.
Crammed, as in
they will have more events rather than spread them
okay.
out.
Well,
Because
fair
of
enough.
lack of time.
Let's have Gopi answer that. Gopi, because the badminton world needs to catch up. So will it be week in, week out in 2021, just trying to catch up with everything? And is that going to be a problem?
Yeah, even when PWF announced the last 4 months calendar, there were about 21 tournaments. It was almost without every week from August to December. So they have their sponsor commitments, so they will push, but the players have to be smart to ensure that they pick what they have to pick, because you want to be not burnt out, and you need to figure out the best tournaments for the rankings and also what's in. So I think from a sponsor perspective, they will try to kind of postpone, prepone, or get things all into the smaller window. But I think from the players' perspective, they need to be smart to take what only they can have or what they can use.
The question was from Mr. Krishnamurthy, right, Madhu?
Yes.
Yeah, so just to remind you, I mean, only the top 10, 20 players are the ones who kind of, make it to the end of the week. And they're the ones who are most tired in many ways, even though they're the fittest. So to my mind, there's a combination of having as many events as possible. For instance, the ATP Tour in tennis has many, many events on many layers. Because those who are not making money at the top 20, top 50, they need all these events week in, week out. But the top players can pick and choose. So, to my mind, there are 52 weeks. And if you want to have a short off season, maybe a month, at least 42, 45 weeks of tournaments could potentially be there, and at multiple levels. Because what do the sportsmen aspire for? They want to be able to play, pick up the points, pick up the money if it's a professional sport, and get on with it. So it's not a question of whether, sponsors will insist on it being cramped. I think that needs to happen. And only the top players can pick and choose, which is fine. Sorry, Madhu, next.
There is another question from Manish Alse. It's on Zoom again. It's for Rahul. Are we going to lose an entire generation of upcoming young sportsmen and cricketers with league season cancelled across cities due to the pandemic? And what's your advice to those aspiring sportsmen in these tough times? To Rahul, if you can, Rahul.
Yeah. So look, I'm not that. I'm an optimist. I believe that I think we will find a vaccine, or we'll find a cure very soon. Yes, this loss of about 6-8 months, potentially maybe nine months might be. I think, like Gopi mentioned, it might affect some people more than it affects others, because of just at the age that they're in and where they're playing in. Like exactly like Gopi said, someone who's got a last year in under 19, this year is going to affect him much more than it would, say, someone who's a much younger or a little bit older, say 23, 24, who's already an established first-class cricketer. But look, I am an optimist. I think that we will come out of this. I think the real advice to a lot of the young sportsmen who find themselves in this kind of situation is to use the opportunity, I think, to to keep learning other skills. I mean, you might not be able to get on a cricket field or your the skill that you're having to do, but this is a really good opportunity to work on maybe some aspects of your fitness or yoga or meditation or things like that you probably never had the opportunity or time to do, and maybe it's a really good opportunity to learn new skills, so that when you do come out of the pandemic, you're in a much better position to capitalize on the new skills that you've learned, and you'll be in a better position to get back to your top level quite quickly. Also, I think one of the other dangers would be, once things start opening up and once tournaments start being played, and I think Gopi alluded to that, very nicely as well, that we're going to have to be very, very careful about how much we play and what we play and ease ourselves back into playing. I think that we run the risk of getting excited too much too quickly and then leading to a lot of injuries for a lot of our young sportsmen. So I think managing the return to play, I think, is going to be quite important with a lot of physiotherapists, trainers, coaches getting involved and guiding and advising their young sportsmen and women in the right manner.
We'll take a couple of more questions because there are a lot of questions flowing in. I think you touched upon it, Rahul. If somebody else can elaborate on this, with such a long layover, how will it impact the physical conditioning and the mental preparation for the players? How long do you feel it will take the players to get back to their rhythm? It's by Dinesh Rao. If Sunil can answer this, since it's about physical, mental preparation for the players and conditioning.
I think I can only speak for myself because it's a very individual question. I have enjoyed this time, not enjoyed the pandemic before. I just enjoyed the time that I had to myself and I could work on myself. Because you play throughout the season, there are so many things that you neglect. There are so many calls from your body, but you neglect because you want to reach that Sunday and play a game. Again, Wednesday, you want to play a game. Again, you do recovery, you are just ignoring the niggles, and again, you want to play on Sunday. So this 3-4 months have given me so much good time to work on my body. And I'm 35 now, but I'm much fitter. The tests that I had before and now 3 months, and I'm not trying to boast, but just because of 3 months of properly taking care of my body and all the niggles that I had a weaker hamstring on the left side. I worked on it. I'm much faster. I've got more stamina. I'm trying to play different sports. I'm just trying to keep it active. So I think these ways, probably when I return, I'll be much more fitter because you have that much of time to plan. Of course, the knowledge is important, because you don't want to eat everything every day. You're going to take everything on board and make sure that you are a fitter person. But all the top athletes, I can guarantee you, are going to be much more fitter after the pandemic. Even the stats in the Bundesliga, the Premier League, and the La Liga showed the boys were coming back more stronger physically. Now, in my game, the tactical part is also important. So when 11 players have to be in sync, that is something that we might miss out because we haven't played together. That's where we might struggle, because individually we're taking care of our body and doing our gym work, doing our recovery, eating well, sleeping well, that's fine. But we have to be a cohesive unit when we come. And that might be something that we're going to struggle initially. But physically, I think this was apt for a lot of players because you could go back and read your body and make sure that you do the right things, because this time is not that we get when a season starts. You don't. And I'm sure all the panelists here who played for so many years will agree to this, that so many times we just neglect it. It's okay, man. I'll be fine. There's a game on Saturday. It's okay. The physio is saying to rest, but it's okay. I'm going to pull it off. And that ways we have done a lot of harm to our bodies. But now with these 3-4 months, I personally I've really gained. I feel very energetic. I feel very happy. And whenever it starts, probably I'm going to be more fitter.
Madhu, I'm going to just transfer that to Pankaj for the mental aspect of it all. Because, the precision involved in cue sports is just, micromillimeters. So therefore, it takes a lot of self-belief to aim to play a shot, and not playing competitive, whether it's billiards or snooker, is also going to take time for people to get belief in their shots back, because it's one thing to practice, but when the pressure is up, it's all about belief, making that angle, Pankaj. So will that take time as well?
Yeah, thanks, Charu. You read my mind, actually. I had a few thoughts on this. Well, you can be a good snooker player as well because you read minds well. But Sunil spot on. At the same time, I just wanted to go a little bit off track when it comes to how to deal with the situation for an athlete or for anybody who's involved in a competitive field or walk of life. We all crave for those, moments where we can just take a step back, relax, introspect, pause. And I'm sure, Rahul sir also, I've heard some of his talks. He talks about introspection, about, how to calm yourself down. And everybody on this panel, everybody is mentally very tough. So, while we were competing and while we were coaching, helping kids, or even competing with the best in the world, at times we wanted that break. And now we've got an extended break. We've got a break for a whole year. So as Sunil said, we can use it to develop certain other aspects of our, preparation, whether it's physical, even mental. Personally, I've started playing a little bit of games on my mobile just to keep my brain stimulated. But coming back to your question, Charu, I do feel that it's going to take a little bit of time for us to get back to our, to get back our full flow and rhythm in the game, because snooker is a game of practice and rhythm. And when you have been out of it for so long, and I remember the first time when, the lockdown was lifted in Bangalore, it was 70 days since I touched the cue. And when I went to play for the first time, I couldn't even make a 40 break. And it took me a couple of sessions to sort of increase the scores and then started playing with a little more self-belief. So I feel that for every sport, once we resume competitive play consistently, and when the competition starts and the calendar resumes and things come back to normal, we're all going to be rusty. And in fact, I'm sure many of us are going to laugh off our mistakes because we know we are going to be so rusty when we get back to international competitive sport. And it's okay, because this is, the situation that we have found ourselves in. And now it's just time to spend, it's time to even spend, with our families, with our loved ones, to look at other things. I mean, even learn how to clean the house, cook a little bit. So it's a way to unwind, really. But of course, we need to come back stronger. And like Sunil said, we have different ways to deal with it during our off season.
Madhu?
Yeah, we'll take one more question for the time being. This is from Dr. Kumaresan Oji. I think this question is, I think, pertaining to Indian situation, I think. Why can't we start the non-body contact games at least? What are the difficulties in doing that? That's his question.
Gopi?
That's for me, I think. Non-contact game.
Gopi can answer that.
Yeah. For me, I think it's a decision which the government takes. And I agree totally with Charu when he says that sometimes when we open up and then there is an instance and then everybody is asking, what is the hurry for you to start things? I think sport is a soft target. And I think for me, one of the sayings, which is that of all the non-essential things, sport is the most important one. I think this is the way I look at it as well. In the sense, for us, I think sport may not be an essential subject or an element, but I think of all of the rest of it, I think this is very, very important. If you have malls, if you have pubs, and if you have bars opening, I think sport should have opened up, of course, with its own regulations. But having said that, it's a call which the government would have to take. From my side, I think I think Sunil has said this, that we have to stick with what the government says, and so we are staying with that. But I would love to see some amount of avenues for physical activity. And I go back to what England had done. The first things they did was, even when there was a total lockdown, they gave a couple of hours for everybody to go out and run in the parks and exercise. I think that is important. For health, sport is important. And for us outside of it, whether it's swimmers or whether it's badminton players, some of us, I think this is just a profession. So you have to treat it not recreationally, but lives are involved. So I think on both fronts, sports should be opened up, is my personal view, but that's again the government's call.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think the government of India is doing a lot more now for sport than they ever did before. I mean, the glass is constantly more and more full. We can criticize as much as we like, but things are getting better and have been getting better for a while. But the opening up of sport and other health activities can also be probably directly correlated to the sporting culture of a nation. The more sporting a culture, the more sports is openly pushed and encouraged. But, we have a bit of a distance to go in terms of being a nation with sporting culture.
I think from our side, from the central government, if you look at, say, the Khelo India or Fit India or Yoga Day, things like these, I think they've done a phenomenal job, to be fair. I think the last few years for sport in general across the board has been very, very good. But also it's a subject. Sometimes the central government has said yes, sometimes the state governments have said no. So I think we have a little tricky situation, and people need to take a conscious call about professional sport being different from recreational sport, and also about opening up sport for immunity and health, and both are important.
Sorry, Charu, if I can just,
Sure.
come in here. Just really, I mean, I'm just listening to Gopi and I completely agree with him, on that difference between professional sport and recreational sport. One of the set of athletes I really feel for through this whole pandemic has been the swimmers. I think swimming is one of those sports where it's really hard to be honest, a lot of the other sports you can do stuff, and Sunil spoke about it, you can do stuff off your sporting arena. Cricketers, we can train, we can get fitter, you can get stronger off the field, and that is directly going to help you when you get back to playing your sport. But swimming is one such sport where you need that, you need those laps on the pool. What you do off the swimming pool is not necessarily going to help you. So, having some of our top swimmers who haven't had the opportunity to swim for the last 6-8 months, I think that's really being tough on them. And, obviously the new regulations also said that, swimming pools are still shut. And I think really, we've got to feel for our swimmers, especially the professional and the elite swimmers, because, they are, it's tough on them. It's not a sport which is easy to have transfer of skills or transfer of physical abilities. And, I think they're the ones who are probably one of the most hit in this pandemic.
Yeah, I can think of other sports, for instance, the questions.
I will take one more question.
Go ahead, Madhu. Sorry.
This is for Gopichand. This is by Hita. The postponed Tokyo Olympics is still tentative of actually happening in 2021. How are you mentally motivating the players to not get disappointed with such uncertainty? Gopi, if you can, please.
Yeah, I think it's very important that actually whatever predicts, we really don't know what's going to come. I think when we look at the way things have been, nobody in March expected ourselves to be in July, August to be the way we are. So I think we don't know what's the future like when we're going to be better. But I think Sunil has mentioned something very important. And I think that this is the time you can, especially if you're an elite athlete, you spend 10, 15 years traveling, you have things to do in your mind, you want time, whether it's spending time with your body, with your family, with your fitness, whatever. But I think at the end of the day, by the end of the pandemic, whenever it happens and whenever sport resumes, you want to be fitter than what you have been physically and stronger mental than what you are before this. I think that would be the key. And you will get back quickly. And I don't know whether it's October, whether it's December, or whether it's April, or whether it's another few months. We just don't know. But I think just take it one day at a time. And whenever things open up, you have to be physically and mentally up there.
Madhu, I'm sure there are plenty of other questions. I want one with Rahul, please, because we need to wrap up, guys. Thank you so much for joining us once again. But Rahul, listen, I see the four of you here, and of course, Madhu, you too. And I see a huge reservoir, a huge mountain of what is important to me as somebody deeply involved who's drowned in the world of sport. I see a lot of, for the lack of other or complicated words, I see gentlemanly conduct. For me, I think, sports persons are all ambassadors. They take the nation forward because of their behavior, not just their achievement. Now, Rahul, you, Sunil, Pankaj, Gopi, you guys are champion ambassadors of India because of the behavioral act. So, Rahul, I'm going to ask you, obviously you've done a lot with the Indian under-19 team, all the youngsters. And I just want a sense from you about, I'm sure you're doing it, and whether the whole world of sport can follow that, of also making sure that people don't just get skilled in their sport, but also understand the responsibility of what is expected from them as some of the leading ambassadors of their nations when they go out and follow their careers. Is there enough attention being paid to that? I know you are.
Yeah, well, I think from our perspective, all I would say is just follow the other three sportsmen on this panel. I mean, you just look at the way Pankaj, Sunil and Gopi have led their lives, conducted their lives. What a role model, inspirations they've been for their sport. I mean, each one of them, they've literally carried their sports and made it what it is today. I mean, what Gopi's done over the last 20 years, from winning the All England to what he continues to do today. Pankaj is literally the face of snooker and billiards in this country for the last 10 years. I mean, so much of the popularity of this sport is, he's carried on the legacy of Big Sethi and a lot of those who followed him. And I mean, Sunil, you spoke about fans and support. I mean, I've been privileged to go and watch Sunil play a few games at Bangalore, and I mean, what he has done for the city in terms of the, and for sort of FCB and what they've done and how they connect with the city is incredible. And the way they continue to carry themselves. I mean, for us, it's just, I think when we talk to a lot of our young sportsmen, we talk to them about following the kind of role models that we'd like them to become and they should look to become. And I can think of no better people than the three others in this panel. I mean, obviously there are some great role models in cricket that we can point them up to, but it's great to look at other sport and look at the way other people have dealt with it. I was really hugely influenced by the way someone like Abhinav Bindra dealt with winning the Olympic gold medal. I mean, the way he carried himself and the way he conducted himself after that, for me was, I've told him that, was actually incredible, so the only man to win and still the only man to win an individual gold medal in an individual sport in this country. And, I think these are great role models for us to follow. So I mean, all we'll be telling them is just follow Pankaj, Sunil and Gopi and you won't go pretty wrong.
Well, somebody's dog is getting anxious, but yeah, I think Abhinav Bindra, you make a good mention. He was the king of cool. You win the first ever gold medal for India individually at Olympics. You come out into the mix zone and say, yeah, my day today. And it could have been somebody else's day. Fabulous. Anyway, Madhu, how much time do we have? Not much.
I can stretch it for another 5 minutes max.
Well, if you want to take another question in, because I can go on and on and on. But I have to ask, maybe Pankaj, again, a closing comment from you. We talked about COVID. Let's talk about something positive as well. And I kept talking about how Q Sports need to take that big leap. I wish you luck. But do you see behind you, because you started being a champ at a very young age, do you see enough coming up to keep that legacy going? Because that's important too. Now that you moved into a bit of administration, what have you, I don't know whether you want to play till you're 50, but is there enough coming through?
Just to clarify, I'm still very much a player and I intend to continue competing for as long as I'm, capable and as long as I enjoy playing. But there is a lot of talent in our country, a lot of youngsters who are actually knocking on the doors of jumping into the big league. We had the youngest national champion, Sri Krishna from Chennai a couple of years ago, who won the senior national billiards title. We've had some really good performances by other Qists as well, Dvacharya, Lakshman Rawat, to name a few. So there's a lot of players who are going to carry forward that legacy, Charu. And billiards and snooker is definitely in safe hands going forward.
I'm really glad to hear that. Sunil, quick word about football. I mean, the most popular sport in the world. Again, expectations are rising in India. To me, it looks like there's an enormous amount of work going on in the world of football at the grassroots level as well, more than ever before. Good signs?
Yeah, very, very good sign. Really, really happy. But the thing is, where we want to reach, we need more. I think one of the realistic targets that I have in my mind for our country is to be in the top 10 of Asia. I think, hovering around somewhere of 16 to 18 in Asia. So I think we really need to speed up all the good work that we are doing. For me, and I can speak about all the sports, identifying the talent at the right age and making sure he or she is given the right infrastructure, knowledge and coaching. And I think our work is done. I think whenever we talk about Olympics and cry that unlike China and America, who also enjoy the population that we have, kind of win so many medals, that's where we lose out. I don't think we as a nation identify and give the nourishment at the right age to all our young budding superstars or players. Once we do that, we'll be miles better. We're talking about sporting culture, we'll be miles better. And that's all I want. That's all what I dream for. That everyone who's playing any sport, wants to play any sport, and he or she is good, should be identified at the right age and given everything for him and her to achieve whatever him or her can achieve. And then our country will be golden.
Well, Gopi, quick word on the improvement or the growth curve of badminton in India. Happy?
I think phenomenal. I think the number of kids who have playing, I think when I was 50, could play a certain level, that number is probably 5,000 today. I think that's huge, the number of people. I think we need to give a lot of credit to the government of India for its schemes and also the SAI for doing it. And also the champions who have actually made it possible for young kids to dream about making it big at the highest level. We need to still refine our coaching system. We need to refine our tournament structure to ensure that our domestic competition is such that by domestic good quality competition, we get to the highest level in the world.
But I think, sorry, go ahead.
I think it's very, very good. And I'm very hopeful that the next generation of players will continue to take Indian badminton forward.
Well, I can't ask Rahul about cricket because we're already the best in the world. But I can certainly ask him about, and you mentioned that term, domestic. Do you feel, Rahul, that much more could be done, needs to be done to make domestic cricket in India, except the IPL, which is also domestic cricket, just a little more followed or more popular, you think, or should just take it easy and let it organically grow?
Look, I think there's some realistic challenges with making domestic cricket more popular from a spectator point of view. It's not easy now for people to be able to miss that amount of time and to be able to come to grounds and watch domestic cricket, especially like when Sunil said this quality cricket year-round, international cricket year-round on television. So, that's not so much of a worry for me, but I think it's really participation at the grassroots level and encouraging grassroots level sport. And I think, I know we're on a DH platform and a Deccan Herald platform, and just a good shout out to Madhu and his team here at DH in terms of the way they cover grassroots sport. And I don't mean that just because I'm on this, but I think that's really, really important, not only for our sport, which is cricket, but for, I think all the other panelists will agree as well. So when you cover these small tournaments, inter-school tournaments, inter-college tournaments, junior tournaments, and you cover that in the newspapers, I think that goes a long way in popularizing those sports, encouraging a lot of these young sportsmen. And if we can continue to do that, I think we'll be fine, because it's great to hear, all the sports are growing today. I mean, cricket continues to grow, all the sport continue to grow. So as a sporting nation, I think we're growing. And I think the more we see that at the grassroots level, better facilities at the grassroots level, I think that's the key. If we can get better training and better facilities at the grassroots level, better support, better sort of advertisement of sport at the grassroots level, better information, better coverage, that's going to go a long way.
Yeah, I think the wheels are turning. It's all moving. Madhu, I'm going to let you have the last word, of course, because you made this happen, but I have the second last word. And I'm only giving an idea to Deccan Herald. Why don't you start a sports comic strip? Because you got the Fab Four right here. So, the Fab Four can contribute to your comic strip as you go along. No better role models. Really, Pankaj, Gopi, Rahul, Sunil, thank you so much for sparing the time. Delight to talk to you, of course, so much more, but perhaps for another day. Madhu, all yours.
Thank you, Charu, for conducting this event. And thank you all the panelists, Pankaj, Sunil, Gopi, and Rahul. Thank you for obliging and coming and discussing this topic. It was a wonderful chat. Thank you again. Stay safe. Stay.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.